Good evening. I hope you're doing well. Certainly, I hope you're doing a whole lot better than I am. My name is Victor Muyakane, and this is the Daily Report. With me, of course, is Catherine Simaloy on Sign Language. Today, we have a lot in store for you. But first, we give you a glimpse of that before I tell you what else we have in the interview segment on Insight tonight. First, the highlights. Tonight. Trevor Mureithi, a multimedia university student who was assaulted by rogue police officers, gives a chilling account of what happened on that fateful day, even as IPOA begins its investigations into the incident. And President Ruto presides over the swearing-in ceremony of Douglas Kanja as the new Inspector General.
And I want to tell the National Police Service, in Mr. Kanja, you have a seasoned leader.
As questions linger over the fate of Masengeli, now a convict. And the Controller of Budget expresses concern over underfunding of her office, warning that without legislative reforms, its operations could be crippled.
I cannot give the information in form of photocopies. I don't have the toners, I don't have the paper.
Once again, good evening. If you're joining us right now, this is the Daily Report, and it begins right now. Trevor Mureithi, a first-year student at Multimedia University, has undergone surgery after sustaining a fractured leg during an injury, in the leg, a fracture during a brutal encounter with anti-riot police officers deployed to the institution on Tuesday following a protest. In a now viral video, the officers are seen beating, kicking and assaulting Mureithi before throwing a tear gas canister right next to him, leaving him for dead. William Moige spoke to Mureithi and brings us the following report.
At the orthopedic hospital in Ongata-Rongai, Kajiado County, Trevor Mureithi is hours out of a surgery.
How are you feeling? Pain?
Visitors, including the management of the Multimedia University, streaming in to wish the first-year student pursuing applied communication quick recovery. The events that led Mureithi to lie on this blue sheet-covered hospital bed are nothing short of chilling. He recounts the harrowing experience captured on camera, where 6 uniformed police officers deployed to control a protest at his school on Tuesday viciously descended on him with blows, kicks, slaps and even a tear gas canister. The encounter has left Mureithi physically and emotionally traumatized.
So when I decided to run up, that's when I met with other policemen who were coming and shout, shika huyo. So when I decided to run, I fell into a ditch, nikavunjika mguu, and then I raised my hands to surrender.
Even while limping and pleading with the officers to spare him the clobbering, they could hear none of it, and the unspeakable act from these Utumishi Kowote men continued with their assault on Mureithi, every officer taking turns to assault the learner who is only 2 weeks old at the institution.
Immediately nilivurutwa juu, akaanza kunikanyaga hii miguu, and then analazimisha nisimame. Niambia amka, niambia mguu yangu inakataa, imevunjika, I cannot walk. And alikuwa sema, you're supposed to die. Alikuwa niambia kufa. And so akijaribu kunidrug, I was hoping with one leg. Nikaanguka. I told them I cannot continue walking.
In the video captured by a fellow student, Mureithi is seen lying motionless, unable to move, and then one of the officers is seen hurling a tear gas canister next to him, which detonated at close range, nearly exploding on his face.
And said, siwezi mwacha hivyo, acha nimwachie dawa na which is tear gas. So akanrushia kwa uso. Kiwa kwa uso, kaanzia kutoa hiyo gas. When I tried pushing it away, another policeman akakuja na rungu threatening me. Mbona unasukuma hiyo?
And even though normalcy has returned to Multimedia University, officers from the Independent Policing Oversight Authority, IPOA, have set up camp at the institution as investigations into the incident begin. Meanwhile, Remi Osati, Secretary General of the University Students Association, has issued a 48-hour ultimatum demanding the immediate arrest of the officers seen in the video assaulting Mureithi.
Just a first year, who is barely 2 weeks old within the institution. you do damage to that extent, then you expect us to sit back and relax and see and assume that things are happening normally.
To serve and to protect, utumishi kwa wote. It is the mantra of the police. But for Trevor, all that was served to him was brutality and torture. For now, he will suspend his studies until when he will be back on his feet. Mwigi William for TV47 at the Multimedia University, Nairobi.
Thank you, William, for that. Now, Douglas Kanja has been sworn in as the new Inspector General of the National Police Service for a 4-year term following the appointment by President William Ruto. Kanja, who takes the office with a full entree, now becomes the 6th Inspector General of Police since the promulgation of the new constitution. Take a look.
Douglas Kanja Kirocho now becomes the 6th Inspector General of Police since the promulgation of the new constitution in 2010 and the 16th Inspector General of Police since 1964.
Mr. Douglas Kanja, our new Inspector General of the Police.
Kanja, who is now the substantive appointee in the office, takes over from his predecessor Japheth Koome and Gilbert Masengeli, whose short stint in an acting capacity was marred with controversies.
Subsequent to my nomination and Parliament having approved your appointment.
Kanja, who is the immediate former Deputy Inspector General of Kenya Police Service, takes over the office with full entree with human rights organizations complaining of consistent pattern of impunity for police officers involved in extrajudicial killings and other abuses. He also takes over from Koome, who resigned in July following the Gen Z-led anti-government protests.
The Constitution, which symbolizes the foundation of principles and values upon which law enforcement is based. It represents the Inspector General's commitment to uphold the rule of law.
These as youth leaders are now calling upon the new Inspector General of Police to ensure reforms in the National Police Service, where vocal youth claim to be an easy target by the police following recent cases of abductions, killing and intimidation. Samira Mohammed for TV47.
President William Ruto has urged Kenyans to register for the new Social Health Authority as Kenya prepares for the official launch on the 1st of October. Meanwhile, the Council of Governors has urged the national government to avail more resources for the implementation of the UHC program. Elizabeth Atieno with more details on the report.
With just 11 days left to the much-anticipated launch of the new funds under the Social Health Authority, President William Ruto Thursday held a meeting with the Ministry of Health officials and governors from several counties to fast-track the transition from NHIF to the new funds. President William Ruto making a clarion call to Kenyans to register for the new funds under the Social Health Authority, as so far only 1.2 million Kenyans have registered.
We should be able by next week to transfer and transit the 9 million members in NHIF now to the new framework.
According to the government, the new health scheme is designed to reduce the financial burden on Kenyans seeking medical services.
Close to 1 million people every year go into bankruptcy because of hospital bills.
The Ministry of Health, on its part, has highlighted the strides made towards a healthier Kenya for all through 3 key pillars, including adequate human resource for health, effective supply chain for health products and technologies, as well as sustainable health financing.
We as a nation, we've been trying to resolve this jigsaw around health for the last almost 15 years.
COG Chair Anne Waiguru saying the county governments are best placed to effect the universal health coverage scheme despite some challenges which may be addressed if counties are well resourced financially.
To implement the Digital Act, the county governments require financial resources for the procurement of ICT equipment, systems, human resource and running costs.
I appreciate the critical role of health in an economy and funding it. We face financial challenges, so let's just get the requests and we will evaluate them.
Despite a recent High Court ruling deeming the new insurance scheme unconstitutional, the government remains committed to launching the program on October the 1st, with President William Ruto highlighting the urgent need to address the legal setbacks for a smooth launch. Elizabeth Atieno, TV47, Nairobi.
Now, still on matters health, during the launch of the East Africa Region Global Health Security Summit, health and governance leaders called for urgent action to enhance pandemic preparedness. As Kenya and neighboring nations face ongoing threats like Mpox, concerns about the region's readiness for future crises remains central to discussions. Anodita with more details.
At the 2025 launch of the East Africa Region Global Health Security Summit, speakers from key health and governance bodies underscored the need for pandemic preparedness, drawing on lessons from COVID-19.
East Africa, to me, has long seemed to be the ideal place to look at how we implement new approaches for health security. This is a vibrant region that has tremendous economic growth, trade, and burgeoning infrastructure.
The event comes at a critical time as Kenya and neighboring East African nations grapple with ongoing health threats, including the reemergence of Mpox. However, amidst these calls for action, a crucial question looms. Is East Africa truly prepared for the next pandemic?
You've seen how much money has gone into HIV, how much money went into COVID. But the question I had was, how much of that money was spent in establishing a resilient health system? If today we were attacked by any new disease, Mpox is here, and maybe assume Mpox was as bad as COVID was or even worse, would we say the investment that we made during COVID can sustain us or has made an impact in our health systems?
Dr. Judith Kose from the Africa CDC underscored the urgency surrounding Mpox, calling for enhanced regional cooperation and the acceleration of vaccination efforts. With Kenya, Uganda and Rwanda already reporting cases, the challenge is not only in responding to the outbreak, but also in ensuring equitable distribution of the Mpox vaccine, particularly to marginalized populations.
Africa CDC and WHO have launched the Mpox Continental Preparedness and Response Plan, and this key initiative is going to guide how we address the preparedness, the response, and the recovery from the Mpox in the region.
Despite the significant strides made in health security, the summit reveals a gap between investments and impact. The ongoing Mpox outbreak will possibly serve as a litmus test for East Africa's pandemic readiness, especially when considering that the most vulnerable populations continue to bear the brunt of health crises. Ann Odida, TV47.
Today marks day 2 of the lecturers' strike. This is after the Secretary General of the university's academic staff union, that is UASU, Constantine Wesonga, informed the lecturers that the court order issued to halt the strike was directed only at him and the Kenya University's staff union, that is KUSU chairperson Charles Mukhwaya. And apparently, according to him, this allows the lecturers to continue with a strike. Anastasia Mukabi tells us more.
Shortly after a court order was issued for lecturers to halt the strike, UASU Secretary General Constantine Wesonga informed the public staffs to continue with the strike.
I have been told to demonstrate by national chairman. I was told to tell you that the so-called court order is immaterial. It was meant for Wesonga and Mukhwaya.
However, at Masinde Muliro University in Kakamega County, lecturers stormed at the Vice-Chancellor's office, claiming that some of the lecturers who were supposed to be in the protest were locked inside.
Some of them were willing to come out, but some of this management have decided to lock our members in the offices. And we are putting them on notice that tomorrow, starting by 8 a.m., We are going to walk into all those offices.
Nonetheless, these lecturers have vowed to continue with the strike until the 2021 to 2025 collective bargaining agreement is signed.
Gomo huu ulitishwa na ofisi zetu za kitaifa, na hadi vile ambavyo watakutuambia lingine, saa hizi tunagoma na tunagoma kwa kuhitaji pesa.
Students are now in agony since the lecturer strike will not only affect learning but also their financial status.
Tulifukuzwa pale darasani, tukaambiwa tuende kwa masters zetu.
Tumelipa karo nyingi, tumeuza shamba, tumekuja shule, tunakuja madarasani hakuna walimu wa kutufunza.
Anastasia Mkabe, TV47, Nairobi.
Right. Tonight, the Controller of Budget, Dr. Margaret Nyakango, says that operations in her office have stalled due to budget shortages. Nyakango, who appeared before the National Assembly's Constitution Implementation Oversight Committee, says that her office has been targeted with budgetary reductions for exposing national and county governments' expenditures. Apollo Kamau reports on a day that Nyakango declared that the country's current budget-making process is unconstitutional.
This session.
For the second time this week, the Controller of Budget, Dr. Margaret Nyakango, appeared before MPs to seek help and avert a possible financial crisis at her office, which approves the withdrawal of public funds for expenditure by national and county governments. Nyakango lamenting how her office cannot even afford simple tasks like copying and printing government documents due to lack of funds.
And because, you know, the work we do is not exactly popular, when there are any reductions to be made, we become the first victims. So again, this is something I would like to place before you, Madam Chair, to see if you can help us. Because in terms of implementing the Constitution, if our legs are tied and we are asked to run, then it becomes almost impossible.
According to the Controller of Budget, her office requires 1.6 billion shillings to be fully functional. In the current financial year, the National Treasury allocated the Controller of Budget 702.2 million shillings, out of which 435 million shillings went towards salaries. The balance of 267 million shillings can barely execute her mandate, among them 20 million shillings required for public participation.
It looks like you're operating on a ship that has no more oxygen left. If you cannot be able to print such documents in color for official presentation in the National Assembly, as you can see the logos are black and white. I'm not so sure whether this was intentional or it is the actual position on the ground. If this is the actual position on the ground of your office, that you cannot afford toners and cartridges to print better documents, then I think something is amiss somewhere.
Nyakango further shocked MPs when she revealed the current budget-making process is unconstitutional due to lack of transparency in revenue estimates and expenditures, where revenues are bypassed. Nyakango wants the law amended to allow her office to scrutinize the revenues. Apul Kamau, TV47.
Now to politics, where the ruling party, the UDA party, the United Democratic Alliance Party, is eyeing the Ugunja parliamentary seat, which became vacant following the appointment of Opiyo Wandayi as the Cabinet Secretary for Energy. UDA leaders from the Nyanza region have already begun preparations to field a candidate who will challenge the ODM contender for the seat. Paul Kirobi reports with more detail.
Following the formation of a broad-based government that included opposition members in President Ruto's administration, the ruling party now faces challenges as it begins organizing for the 2027 elections. UDA leaders already expressing interest in the Ugunja parliamentary seat, left vacant after Opiyo Wandayi was appointed as the current Energy Cabinet Secretary. And now the development could serve as a test for the growing political relationship between President Ruto and Raila Odinga. Acting UDA Secretary General Hassan Omar hinting at the need for the Orange Democratic Movement ODM to allow UDA to field a candidate for the vacant parliamentary seat.
That there is a desire
that in the same spirit of brotherhood and sisterhood, in the same spirit of the broad-based government, that there is a desire by the UDA Luo Nyanza leadership that we do consider fielding a candidate in Unguja constituency following the appointment of Opio and I.
This as UDA officials and leaders from Nyanza region, led by former Nairobi Governor Evans Kidero, begin preparing the ground for the preferred candidate.
Nyanza province, that the party, the ruling party UDA, will be, and we've consulted and we'll keep consulting, we are very keen on taking over that seat through UDA. We will be filling a candidate. I know there'll be consultations led by our brother here, the SG, Hassan Omar, Mheshimiwa, but that is what we are planning on the ground.
Tensions between the two political factions are escalating as UDA leaders from the Nyanza region push for the party to field a candidate in the Unguja parliamentary seat. This move may not sit well with the Orange Democratic Movement, given that Nyanza region has long been a stronghold of Raila Odinga. ODM members from the region insisting on fielding their own candidate, arguing that doing so is crucial to safeguard Raila Odinga's political interest in his home base. Paul Kirobi, TV47, Nairobi.
Collins Kibet, the grandson of the late former president Daniel Arap Moi, was sentenced to jail on Thursday for contempt of court. Nakuru Principal Magistrate Kitui Kibelion ordered that Kibet be committed to Nakuru GK prisons for failing to comply with a court order requiring him to support his children. Chichi Josephine has more on this story.
Collins Kibet, former president the late Daniel Moi's grandchild, has been sentenced to 7 days in jail for disobeying a court order to support his children in a case filed by Kibet's ex-wife Gladys Jeroto.
I shall mention the matter herein in 7 days to get the exact sum owing towards the satisfaction of the decree. In the meantime, the judgment debtor shall be committed to civil jail for the period, and the decree holder shall pay the judgment debtor's subsistence for the period.
Nakuru Principal Magistrate Kitui Kibelion directing that Mr. Kibet be committed to jail at Nakuru GK prisons for 7 days, with directions further given to the council for Mr. Kibet's ex-wife to tabulate all the outstanding sum and furnish them to Mr. Kibet's advocates within 3 days for settlement to be arrived at.
I direct that the decree holder do tabulate the exact sum owing as per the decree as at this date and serve upon the judgment debtor within 3 days of today.
While defending himself, Kibet, through his lawyer Anthony Musili, said he was not only unable to financially support his children, but also meet his own needs.
Your Honor, our client has no source of income and could definitely not have been in contempt of court for simply being a pauper.
There is nothing tangible that has been placed before this honorable court and or even orally submitted as to what the defendant has done in compliance with the judgment of the courts.
Kibet, who was arrested on Wednesday pursuant to an arrest warrant, spent the night at the Nakuru Central Police Station before he was presented in court on Thursday. The case will be mentioned on 26th of September to confirm compliance of the orders given by the court.
The matter shall be mentioned on 26th of September 2024.
Chichi Josephine, TV47.
Thank you. Now, telco giant Safaricom has launched the very first tech-fit and experiential outlet in the country, meant to serve over 500 clients on the daily. The telco is now delving into a mix of physical and digital stations to walk in customers at one touch point to offer integral support services. It's quite a mouthful, I tell you, ladies and gentlemen. And this is a new scheme to attract consumer outreach. And the enterprise-led outlet will also offer gaming services, a tech zone, a customer care aisle, and even business meeting zones. This comes in the wake of concerted efforts by Safaricom to offer additional services to woo customers away from the Starlink wave.
Bridging a physical experience with a digital experience. Being able to serve a customer for their home, for their business, as well as we've not forgotten the youth who will eventually have a place where they can come and have a gaming and innovation section. In this experiential store, where we will be able to host and have demonstrations. So it's not just what you can come and do one-on-one, but it's also events where we can showcase those solutions to you in a group and also open it up to others who maybe want to show some technology solutions that are geared to a home or a business customer. And for those who may need additional help, you will see private booths that are soundproofed, where you can have conversations with specialists, not only in the store, but also connected to specialists who may be in another location who can assist you.
We want to take a short break, a bit of a breather. When we come back, we will have more content for you. Please stay tuned. And just before we go, I'd like to remind you that 2 days from now, we will have the International Day of Peace. The International Day of Peace. What does peace mean to you? Why don't you mull on that as we take this break? We'll be right back.
Hey there friends, welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in? I was number 2. What position were you? Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism, how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m. The Grind, where business meets brilliance. It's not just about the ideas.
I was working as a shampoo boy
I used to wash clients' hair on the sink.
It's about making them happen. From big wins
in primary school when we would
luxury items
and stories to fuel your ambition. Don't just dream it, grind it. Mondays at 7:30 p.m.
Jiunge nasi tunapoangazia safari za viongozi bora. Kutoka kwa ushindi mkubwa hadi masomo magumu.
Wakati wetu kwamba wasichana si wa kusoma, ni wa kuolewa, ng'ombe ipatikane, wazazi wakuwe watajiri.
Tunashughulikia yote.
I wish I were a better investor.
My parents taught me how to look for things for myself.
Tazama Mfahamu Kiongozi, ambapo kila kipindi kimejaa maarifa, mikakati na hadithi za kukuza azma yako.
For me to succeed, I have to fight.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30.
Welcome back. If you're joining us right now, this is the Daily Report from TV47, the home of untold stories. Now, the International Commission of Jurists, Kenyan section, has launched its much anticipated 2022 election compendium, which is a document that gives a thorough analysis of the decisions made by the courts during the 2022 general election cycle. The critical insights into the legal reasoning behind the key election judgments will serve as a reference for future election-related disputes. The launch comes 2 years after the highly contested 2022 general elections.
This to launch the ICJ Kenya compendium on 2022 elections. Now the compendium contains select decisions arising from the petitions and cases that were filed in the run-up and after the 2022 general elections and the presidential election. We have put the cases in themes to make it easier to zero in on the particular issues that arose during the electoral dispute processes.
There are usually, very rarely, disputes that emanate from an electoral process because the structures, the legal framework, the processes, the political parties are all in place and each institution plays its role. But in a fragile democracy such as ours, there are certain things that are not adhered to, whatever the lofty provisions in the Constitution. And therefore, it does mean that disputes will emanate from an electoral process.
Now, in other news, leaders from Kitui County have urged the Kenya Kwanza government to ensure that they fulfill the promise to establish 8 new police stations as soon as possible. This is to help curb insecurity cases across the border with Tana River County. Speaking after a meeting with Internal Security PS, that is Raymond Omolo, these leaders stated that they had an agreement to drive away all the people who have encroached on the game reserves in Kitui County, and they need the government support for that.
North, kuna watoto waliuliwa 4 na pande ya kwangu kuna mtu mmoja aliuliwa. Pande ya Kitui South watu wameuawa wengi sana. As we speak, jana watu wamepikwa sana pande ya Kamuluyuni ambayo iko New Ward na bado wako hospitali.
A special case of Kalalani. Kalalani, all of us are aware that that is a terrorist breeding zone. Our students of Garissa University were killed by terrorists who were staying in that area. The terrorists that attacked Westgate, they organized their crimes in Kalalani. So even what we are talking about here, we are under Nyali. So we are not only talking about a Kitui issue, this is a national issue. And that's why we are saying that those areas or game reserves must be evicted by both people from Kitui County and from Tana River.
Kuna acts of parliament ambazo zimeonyesha boundaries, na ninafurahia ya kwamba PS amesema hakuna mtu anaenda kubadilisha boundaries, na amesema wanasiasa wajiweke kando ndio security agencies waweze kufanya hiyo kazi.
Right. Now, we want to shift gears away from national news to matters that speak to who we are as a country, who we are as a people, as a society, and who we are as individuals. We're talking about peace today. And the conversation revolves around something we would like to call transgenerational conversations for peace. And this is something about cultivating a culture for peace. All this, of course, is in the running of just before, 2 days before the International Day of Peace. And we want you to really pay attention to these conversations because the insights therein will surprise you, astound you, and hopefully inspire you. And tonight we are joined by somebody who's the absolute, perhaps, expert on this subject. This is none other than the chairperson, no less, of the National Cohesion and Integration Commissioner, the Right Reverend Sam Kobia. This gentleman has served as an advisor on cohesion all over the world. He has also served as a commissioner in the Judicial Service Commission. He has also served as an ecumenical special envoy to the Sudans. You know how volatile that region has been. He's been a special envoy to the Sudans. He's also served for about 10, 11 years as the Chancellor of St. Paul's University. This gentleman has also served as the former Secretary General for the World Council of Churches based in Geneva. He's got a vast experience in matters mediation and dialogue. And of course, this is his passion, this is his life's work, and this is his legacy. I don't think we have anyone better to talk to us about this. Good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, and thank you for your very kind words of introduction.
Absolutely. It's the least we could say about your vast experience and your very, very rich CV. Thank you for your service to the nation, sir.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right. Now, ladies and gentlemen who are watching us, the Reverend Kobia is joining us from Eldoret. And, sir, I want you to talk to us a little bit about the concept of peace. What does peace mean to you personally, and what is it about peace that made it your life's work, so to speak?
Well, first of all, I want to say that as a Christian, a theologian, and a leader in the ecumenical movement worldwide, I derive my understanding of peace from Jesus Christ, who is described as the Prince of Peace. And Jesus himself said that he came to bring peace to the humankind. And for that peace to thrive and to flourish, it is important that we look at peace not just as absence of war, but as a way of life. Mm. And that is only when we see peace as a way of life where human beings want to be at peace with each other, at peace with their God, whoever they consider their God to be, at peace with the creation. So for me, peace is holistic. It's not just the absence of peace, of war or conflict, but also is not a passive peace, but active peace, which means that there have to be ways of resolving conflicts and wars that are peaceful and not based on violence.
Right, right. Thank you for that. You did say something, and I'd like you to elaborate a little bit more. You said you prefer that we all embrace an active sort of peace rather than a passive sort of peace. Would you care to give us the distinction between the two, active peace versus passive peace, and why one is better than the other?
Yes, by active peace, I mean that when something goes wrong that disturbs peace or harmony and happiness, relationship between human beings, then what needs to be done is to take initiative in making sure that the root cause or causes of the conflict are addressed at their root and not just the symptoms. Passive peace could be seen as you just keep away from even conflicts and hope that the other person will keep away. But you have to face conflicts head on. That then means you have to find ways of resolving conflicts peacefully. Now, this means, first of all, by providing a space or an environment within which the parties in conflict can come to talk to each other. But what that also means is that they have to have a trust in the kind of space or platform provided by whoever is trying to resolve or to help them to resolve their conflicts.
All right, all right. Now, I understand that the organization that you had, the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, is working on something called a framework for transgenerational conversations, which is part of a broader effort towards cultivating a culture of peace. Sir, these are big words. We want you to break it down for us. What does it mean? What is this framework for transgenerational conversations, and why should we pay attention to it, sir?
Well, the reason for the NCIC to come up with this framework is because looking at where we are as a country and as a people called Kenyans, we have challenges that can only be met if we understood each other as citizens, if we embrace patriotism and say that, look, we have challenges, we have problems, but we are the ones who can resolve them. And the biggest challenge the country really has faced is when the Gen Z stormed the national stage and occupied it, and obviously there were implications of this, whether it's economically or politically, and we see that within a short time, the Gen Z were able to accomplish what I would say all political parties together and even with the civil society could not achieve. And when we look at why, then the president really found it necessary to dissolve the cabinet when the bill, Finance Bill 24 was dropped, when we saw that the reconstitution of the IEBC has been fast forwarded. So this means that there are ways that obviously a message can be sent and action be taken. This is by a generation called Gen Zoom. But then, as a country, we have a history of resistance and struggles against oppression, against any form of dehumanizing Kenyans. So what we have said is the framework we are providing is to say all of us, all the generations must come together, because since the time of colonialism from 1920s, each generation at the age where Gen Zoom are at, they also did something significant in making sure that they get back their humanity and freedom and justice and peace. So what we are doing as NCIC, because our mandate is to try and get Kenyans to live peacefully in a just society and cohesively. So that is why yesterday, when I called a meeting to announce this framework, I had 5 generations at the platform. The oldest person being 103 years, that is Yetu Wakahengeri,
wow,
who was detained in the struggle for independence. He was detained in Manyani maximum detention camp and Lamu, and he survived, and therefore he has a story to tell. Then I had what I would call baby boomers, and that's perhaps even the generation I belong to myself,
right,
where we talked about the struggle against the single-party dictatorship of 1970s and 80s. That time I was the General Secretary of the National Council of Churches of Kenya, and I was part of what we organized for people to say, now time has come for us to liberate ourselves from the shackles of single-party dictatorship. And that is what led to the first of the Mau Mau, we can call it the first generation, and then achieving multipartyism is the second liberation, which went all the way to culminating in the promulgation of Constitution 2010. So what we are saying is that we need now to come together, and no generation should be too confident that alone they can do what we need to do together. And that is why we are saying we are providing a platform so that we can have transgenerational conversations, and we tell stories where we have succeeded. Then we ask why did we succeed? And if we did that, the Gen Z will begin to see that there are Kenyans of older generations who can contribute to what now needs to be done to build on the successes or the gains that the Gen Z have made. So that's basically what it is. So we started with the meeting of yesterday. On Saturday, when we mark the International Day of Peace in Kapenguria in West Pokot, that will be the second time we'll now be rolling out this program for transgenerational conversations, starting from the bottom, from the communities, to the locations, to counties, and back again to the national stage. So it is a very, very ambitious, but I would feel that we need it this time. Come and let us reason together.
Right. Now, sir, in this country, we are no strangers to conflict. We're no strangers to sometimes even inter-community conflict. We're talking about things on a somewhat larger scale, away from, person-to-person conflict. One of the areas that has been, unfortunately, and I say this with respect even to the people that live there, one of the areas that has been affected by matters of peace has been the North Rift region. I would like you to talk to us a little bit about some of the achievements that have happened there. I understand there are some counties like West Pokot, for example, which is something of a model county. I think one of the few that actually has a CEC for peace and such. I would like you to talk to us about what's going on there that is turning the tide on the stories that we've always told about that area, sir.
Yes, well, thank you for that question. And the reason for the NCIC to choose to commemorate the International Day of Peace in West Pokot, it's a way, or it signifies actually the achievements that have been made in West Pokot. And it is the people, the leaders of West Pokot themselves, who approached NCIC some months back and say, why don't you come to West Pokot so that we can show Kenyans that we are now embracing peace. And what has happened there, and as you have said quite correctly, you know, when people hear the name West Pokot, they only think of cattle rustling, they think of, people killing each other. Now, what the leadership there is saying is that during the period we have worked together, there are what we call peace dividends that have made the people of West Pokot to realize that they are better off living in peace. Because when you are not fighting, then development takes place. Children can go to school. Women can go to the market and meet other women of different ethnic communities and go home peacefully. Communities can begin to talk to each other. So it is these peace dividends, like what I have mentioned, opening of schools, women going to markets, young men now beginning to tell us that we would like to have alternatives to livelihoods, and we will give up cattle rustling and violence altogether. So this is very encouraging. That's what I really would like Kenyans to know, that here is a part of Kenya that has been equal to what really I would say different types of conflicts, but now they are beginning to embrace peace. And that is where we are going to celebrate peace there in order to show that indeed things have changed in West Pokot. And that message also can be taken to other parts of the country where there are ethnic conflicts or boundary conflicts, because there are so many counties and communities, as you have rightly said, who are in conflict because of boundaries or because of different ethnic communities.
Wow, that's wonderful, sir. But here's another question. I'm looking at our country, and as vast and as culturally diverse as it is, sometimes that element of culture does get in the way of some processes. I want you to talk to us a little bit about the place of women and youth, especially in the process of peace building, with a cultural backdrop of these two groups, and some, in some communities, they don't really have a say in the matter. In some places, only the elders, and particularly male elders, are allowed to have any positions of influence or to even speak, in public addresses. What is the place of women and youth in the process of peace building for this future that you've described?
Well, I would like to state very confidently that if we bring women and the youth to peace platforms, we will succeed even faster than we are doing when we have approaches to peace that exclude women and young people. I say this because of, really practical experiences that we had. For example, in Isiolo. Now, Isiolo is one of the places where in Isiolo town they talk of the Big Five, not the animals, but the Big Five tribes: Boran, Mero, Somali, Turkana, and Samburu. And for a long time, men only were the ones that were meeting to discuss about how to resolve conflicts, until they then realized that actually you are excluding two extremely important categories of women and men and the young people. Young people, first of all, because they are the ones who go to fight. And I must say that we have been encouraged to see in these areas, like Samburu, we are now in the process of dealing with Moranism. And because Moranism is, the situation where Morans must go to fight, must bring cattle back home, as they say. And to do that, they get the blessing of the elders. So we have had meetings with the elders in Samburu and other pastoral communities where they have said, okay, we are not going to any longer be sending young people with the blessings to go and steal other people's cows. And the young men that we have talked with, they have told us that, look, we are prepared to leave this tradition, and if you give us alternatives for livelihoods, we will take it. And therefore, in Isiolo, we came up with Women for Peace. And then the young people are agreeing to begin really to look for alternatives, which we wanted to work with, especially Ministry of Cooperatives, who have promised that they will provide financial means for these young, the youth, not only men, but also women, young women, to have new ways of earning their livelihoods. So I want to say that we are really at a very critical stage where, from my own understanding of peace building around the world, that actually we have reached a point in Kenya where if we leverage on some of these gains and the change of mentality and attitude, and even culture, because the culture of violence has accompanied our communities' lives in Kenya for a long time. So I think now there is the goodwill among the different generations. There is means, alternative resources, I would say, and now it's a question of coming together. And in this, I must say that part of the transgenerational conversations will facilitate such engagements with all generations.
Wow, wonderful, wonderful. Now, sir, before I let you go, I want to give you an opportunity to speak to Kenyans from your heart. If there's one message you'd like to pass across to the nation of Kenya, the people that are listening to you, all the different generations that you have referred to, from boomers all the way to Gen Z and Gen Alpha, wote. Naomba uzungumze nao from your heart. Give them a message.
Well, thank you very much. I really want to talk to my compatriots, Kenyans, to say that we have one of the most blessed countries in the world with a mosaic of cultures and a wellspring of potential. If we are able to navigate the storm that we see today and consider the opportunities that we have for maintaining and even improving on the peace that we have, because Kenya for a long time has been an oasis of peace in this region, and many of our neighbors are looking up to Kenya and saying, we really would not want to see Kenya lose the peace that they have, because that's where we go when we have conflicts and violence in our own country. So I want to tell Kenyans, we have a really beautiful and blessed country. I have traveled really almost in all countries of the world when I was General Secretary of the World Council of Churches, and I would say if Kenyans knew what a beautiful country we have, we can only build on that, but let's not do anything that would disturb the peace, the tranquility, but above all, the resources that we have of our people. And if we work together, there is no doubt that we are going to make this country bigger and better and stronger, which is going to be good for all Kenyans of all generations and in all places and in all our diverse cultures. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your message, loud and clear. Good people, that has been the Reverend Sam Kobia, who's the chairperson of the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, that is NCIC, on the subject of transgenerational conversations and, of course, cultivating the culture of peace, which is the theme for this year's International Day of Peace, coming up this Saturday. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Victor Muyakane, and I wish you a good night, and I certainly hope you have found some insight on Inside Tonight with me. Up next is your weekly sporting action, turbocharged sporting action in VAR. I'm out. God bless you.